You are now watching The Meech.
The Wii U? That's a decade old. And not only that, when it released, its hardware was a decade old. Oh man, it's really got nothing on the Switch. The Switch has controllers that have motion controls, gyro sensors. They also can be given to a friend, not to mention the library of games that are there, such as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Maker 2, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze plus Funky Mode. Don't forget
Petey?
Funky's in there.
Petey?
What?
Other than
What?
Super Mario Maker 2, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but those games are on Wii U. And even with Super Mario Maker 2, you wouldn't get it without the Wii U. How do you feel about that now? Is the Switchy still the greatest game console of all time?
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, the Wii U versions aren't called Deluxe now, are they?
The Wii U version doesn't have Peachette, does it? There. Your argument's
Hey,
destroyed.
what's wrong with Peachette?
Okay, the fact that you need to ask that, your argument is just completely invalid now. Dare I say, 100%
Invalid!
invalid? Hey, we're on the same page there. Now, Petey, as much as I love to hear your amazing rationales and your incredible ideas and such, I'd rather have T&D for this discussion because you didn't own a Wii U, did you?
Yeah, I guess I didn't. Let me bring T&D over.
I'm glad you came to your
Hello?
senses there.
Hello?
Hey, Petey and I just had a discussion, and the Wii U is a decade old. And considering that you got the system the year it launched, and I got it the following year, and how it was a pivotal point of our friendship, I thought it'd be fun to do a discussion about the Wii U a decade later, what we thought of the console, looking back at it now, and just overall, some of the highlights of the console, as well as some of the other memories we have had with it. So the Wii U specifically is such a fascinating console, not only because of the circumstances with it. We all know that it wasn't a success, the marketing was bad, but we as Nintendo fans knew that it was another console, and I was very excited to get it. In fact, I almost did get it when it launched. It was the year 2012, and my dad was able to get the Wii U, I think it was launch day, because when the Wii U first released, it was very hard to find. But unfortunately, I don't remember what I did, but I somehow misbehaved to the point where I pissed off my mom so much that she called my dad, who had the Wii U in hand. It wasn't the basic bundle either, it was the deluxe one. He had the Wii U in hand and was forced to return it. What did I get that year? I got Paper Mario, Sticker Star, and Little Debbie's. The Little Debbie's were good, but oh my gosh, Sticker Star, no. I would rather eat those decade-old cloud cakes right now on the spot than go back to playing Paper Mario Sticker Star.
Wow. Yeah, that's Sticker Star as a Christmas present. Jeez.
Well, it was a birthday
Uh,
present, but since my birthday's in
uh,
December, same
oh, there
difference.
you go. Yeah. Um, I don't remember going out to get a Wii U, but I remember my dad going to get it for Christmas for my brother and I. And I think New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe came with it, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you are
Um,
mistaken because Deluxe is on the Switch, but I know what you're talking
oh
about.
yeah,
See, this guy knows what he's talking about.
clearly. Um, I got that Nintendo Land, and I think that was it. And yeah, that was my first exposure was Christmas 2012, and you know, I I'm not gonna lie, like even back then I thought it was a very odd console. Like especially I didn't really understand the U part of Wii U. And the gamepad looked interesting to me. To me in my head, I thought that I was gonna be able to like take it on the go and stuff, and quickly I realized that that wasn't the case. Uh, so yeah, it's you know, it was interesting. I don't know if I should talk about my game experiences right now because I'm sure that's a different section. But yeah, my first introduction to the Wii U was Christmas 2012. Um, my first game for it was New Super Mario Bros. U, um, and Nintendo Land. And I played it quite a lot. I was a dedicated Nintendo fan. I was gonna get the new console no matter what back in the day. The same thing happened with the 3DS. I just got it day one because I'm a big Nintendo fan. And looking back at it now, I think it's better not to get a console at launch because there's usually like no games at launch, or like if there are games at launch, they're few and far between. So yeah,
Well, either that or hardware defects, because with the Wii U and the 3DS, there were never really hardware problems, but there weren't really many games when the console, either of them launched. The 3DS specifically really didn't have any heavy hitters. At least with the Wii U, you had a Mario game and you had Nintendo Land, but 3DS, not so much unless you want to count something like Pilot Wings, which was cool, or Nintendogs, but with that being said, I couldn't get either of the consoles when they launched because my parents thought the 3DS would make me blind, and with the Wii U, I obviously was misbehaving that one day, and I didn't get the Wii U that Christmas. But looking at the console beforehand, obviously I was very excited for it because, it was the new Nintendo console. It would have the new Mario games, and that's all I really cared about. I couldn't care less about the specs back then or anything like that. It was just a matter of, oh my gosh, I want to play the Mario game with the squirrel suit. That's going to be so
yep.
much fun. It's going to be a breath of fresh air for Mario, and it might not have been that, but before the Wii U launched, I actually had some quite interesting opinions because when it was first revealed, I didn't even think it was a new console. I thought it was an accessory for the Wii. I actually made a flip note
Yeah.
talking about that because even before YouTube, I was making flip notes and stuff, and I still had opinions then. And I thought it was going to be an expensive deluxe version of a Wii remote. I'm like, why would you need this when you can get a 3DS? Don't waste your money on a Wii U. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people thought the same way and never realized that the Wii U was a different console. But leading up to it, you got it pretty soon, so there wasn't much in between the reveal of the console and the build up. Sure, it was a little over a year, but still, you got it pretty much when it released because I couldn't think of anything that released after it launched. We'd have to wait until 2013 to hear really more about the games coming to it, as well as seeing what would come to the system. But I remember
Right.
trying it out on many different occasions. I went to Target specifically because they had a Wii U that you could demo, and Nintendo structured it in one of the worst ways possible. They had these demo kiosks, but guess what? You couldn't actually play any games with it. You just could hold the controller and get a feel of it. That was
Wow.
insane. I couldn't believe it. They actually had
One.
something like that for the Switch, but there were no controllers or anything like that until later in 2017. But it was disappointing to say the least, but I did actually get to play it throughout 2013. I had friends who had it. When I was at their house, I couldn't stop playing New Super Mario Bros. U. There was even a pizza restaurant that had a Wii U that you could play, and I remember playing it there. Any chance I got, I would play the Wii U as much as I could. It was something I wanted so bad, and I finally
I
got it
al-
that year.
I always had problems with my Wii U. Just like for some reason, my gamepad always suffered from drift, and there was always like some sort of delay, like input delay with my games. So it wouldn't be that enjoyable for me until I get like a pro controller later on. But yeah, I didn't know that there was a such thing as a Nintendo hotline back then or whatever. I just thought that my system was defective.
With the Wii U, I think that's the case because unlike the Switch, the Wii U is pretty reliable. I mean, sure, the gamepad itself kind of looked like something that Fisher Price would make, but if it works, it works. And if it falls over, you don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry
It
about drift because it's incredibly
yeah,
rare for the Wii U, but
it does look like a U-Draw tablet from the Wii.
it does. I feel like that's where a lot of the confusion was. I actually have the U Draw tablet, and it was pretty cool. I think the problem was they tried to make it for the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and it wasn't the demographic for that, and THQ made far too many of them, hence why they become bankrupt. But it seems like you had a problem for Nintendo and THQ. But when did you get the Pro controller?
Um, let me think. I think I got it around the time I got Super Mario 3D World, which was that following November, if I remember correctly. I mean, Mario games usually come out during the fall.
Yep, it was
Um,
November.
yeah, so it was November. Yeah, I had actually I remember getting that game. My friend and my friend went to pick me up and said, um, you know, uh, we're going somewhere special. And I was like, okay. And we end up at Best Buy and we're buying Super Mario 3D World. And I was actually looking. I mean, I always look forward to a Mario game, but I remember my reaction to the game, and I think you do too, because we were talking during that time uh, about games. And you were a lot more optimistic about 3D World than I was. I was expecting Galaxy 3. I was not expecting a sequel to one of my least favorite 3D Marios. And to boot it off, I'm more of a dog person, so to see Cat Mario was kind of
You
a
should
dig
sleep
at
next
me.
to a dog or a cat.
No, I'm just kidding about the cat part. The Cat Mario thing was fine. Um, but it would be cool to see a dog Mario power up someday. But anyways, I remember telling you, I remember being really upset that E3 2013 about Mario 3D World. Like, yeah, it was cool that there was 4 playable characters, but it was like for the first HD Mario game, you're gonna make a sequel to like 3D Land instead of like Galaxy 3 or something.
Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa! Are you forgetting about New Super Mario Bros. U, the first HD Mario game? Okay, it stood for highly
Yeah.
disappointing, but the first HD Mario game, high definition graphics, is Mario Kart Arcade Grand Prix Deluxe, and no one can convince me otherwise because that is an amazing looking game. And it would have been cool to see it come to the Wii U or any console for that matter. But unlike the Switch, the Wii U actually got an original Mario Kart. So, just discussing our thoughts on some of the early Wii U stuff, like you were talking about 3D World, I feel like now would be a good time for me to discuss what it was like actually getting the console, how I felt about it, because I remember E3 2013 vividly, and, from there just go on to some of the highlights of the system, because by December of 2013, we were on the same page, because I finally had the console. It was a Mario and Luigi bundle, and there's actually an unboxing video of me unboxing it, and I was very excited to get the system. And I remember the day I got it, I could not stop playing New Super Mario Bros. U. I think I also played Luigi U as well. I think it was Luigi U first. I was more excited to play that because it was the first game, a 2D platformer, to feature Luigi as the main character, and I was super excited for that. And even to this day, I love New Super Luigi U. I can't say the same for New Super Mario Bros. U, but I feel like a lot of it was the novelty of getting the new console, something that I really wanted. But overall, I had some fun with the Wii U when I got it, and I got 3D World for Christmas of that year. Things like the gamepad I actually found to be pretty cool because I think the main draw of it was I could play off TV. Having other siblings who use a TV, it was nice being able to take it to my room and play from there, especially considering that I was still in school at the time. And it was
Yeah.
not anything different for me to stay up late, even back then. There were nights where I'd go to sleep at like midnight, 1 a.m., and I would play the Wii U in my room, so having the gamepad was cool. Now, with the
Yeah.
portable aspect, I did think that could have been it, but nowadays, it was very soon where I realized that it's not a portable Wii. I knew that before even getting the console, so there was no disappointment there. But I feel like with the Wii U, everything started to pick up to showcase this is truly the next generation of Nintendo the following year, which is when we became friends. It was before
Yeah.
Mario Kart 8 released. That's how long ago it was. And we were talking about how we were excited for the game, New Super Luigi U, and I even
Yeah.
played it 2 weeks before you.
I
I
actually remember your Instagram picture at the time was a picture of the year of Luigi. And I think we were talking about Mario Kart 8, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember it vividly. You had the
Yeah.
news, or you had the Year Luigi profile picture, and I posted something about Mario Kart 8 getting the Koopalings as playable characters, and how the game keeps on getting better and better. And you even agreed. And looking back, we're talking about the Koopalings. Now,
Yeah,
nowadays, the Koopalings are seen as the pinnacle of, oh, we don't know what characters to add. And if you look at Mario Kart 8's roster, it's very apparent because you have Mario Kart with Pink Gold Peach and Baby Rosalina. Though to be fair, I will say, at least back then in the Wii U era, the discussion was, why is Pink Gold Peach a character? Meanwhile, nowadays you have Mario Strikers Battle League. Why are there no characters? It's
I
just
actually
insane going back.
I actually remember you got to play the game early, and you were telling me like your first impressions of it and everything. And I actually, maybe we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I remember Smash 4 when I was in school and you told me you'll never guess who got announced today. And I remember telling you, I was like, my top two characters to be in Smash right now since Mega Man got in are Pac-Man and Crash Bandicoot. And we're both very big Pac-Man fans. So, and then you sent me that picture of Pac-Man in the battlefield in the Pac-Land stage, and you're like, it's Pac-Man. And I I'm not even kidding. I was like, I said yeah, like really loud in class, and everyone looked at me, and I was like, uh-oh.
I
Everyone
remember
knows
that.
that I'm excited.
I
Yeah,
actually remember
and
your
my
response. Is Pac-Man in Smash? And you probably couldn't contain how excited you were for it.
dude, oh my God, that's still one of the best Smash reveals for me, besides like Banjo. Like,
Honestly,
I don't
I would
know.
say it's my favorite reveal. Simply because
I would,
that's my number one wanted character in Smash.
and it was the design that I wanted because I remember at the time Ghostly Adventures was on the rise, and I remember you and I hated that design.
Even back then.
And yeah, even back then. And I remember, like, I was so relieved to see the original Pac-Man design because I was like, yes, that's Pac-Man, not this garbage that they're trying to shove down our throats. This is the real deal. Hopefully, people could see this is what we want. And eventually, we got that.
It would take a very long time, but I'm glad that with Super Smash Bros., Sakurai said, you know what? You can try to request Ghostly Adventures Pac-Man to be in the game all you want, but we're not going to have him if you keep that ugly design where Pac-Man has realistic teeth and a square tongue. We got to have the classic design or no Pac-Man in Smash, and fortunately, the right decision was made. But, just looking back at things such as Mario Kart 8 and the hype for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, I don't
Yeah,
like
that
the
was,
titles of those games, but man, the hype was just immense.
yeah. I think the hype was, I know Smash Ultimate hype was pretty big in the beginning, and I'm not denying that, but I think maybe it's just my nostalgia, but I think like Smash 4's hype was probably bigger for me. Like
Oh, I would say
Mega,
absolutely for me.
yeah, Mega Man, Pac-Man. Who else did we get? Um, we got Mewtwo back. We got,
Your favorite Rosalina, Bowser Jr.,
oh yeah,
Little Mac,
Rosalina.
the Duck Hunt
Actually, it
dog.
was the Duck Hunt dog was really cool. That was a really cool addition.
I will say
Uh,
that Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS had way cooler newcomers. As cool as some of the third-party stuff is, especially Banjo and Kazooie, I think the highlight of Smash is always the Nintendo characters, with like exceptions like the major gaming icons like Pac-Man or Sonic the Hedgehog or
yeah.
Mega Man.
Yeah, of course. And actually, I remember my brother was excited for it too because he's a massive Pac-Man fan as well, and he's a Pac-Man main to this day, like the Pac-Man main. I can't main Pac. Well, I tried maining Pac-Man, but it's not as easy as you think. You really got to master how to use the fruit and like the fire hydrant, but I really like his moveset. It's like he's like an all-in-one Namco character. And like as someone who's played the plug and play Namco Jack Specific games, like I really appreciate that. Like all the Mappy references, Dig Dug, all the Tower of Jiraga references. I'm just a big Namco arcade head. So seeing all that stuff made me really happy.
Oh, definitely. I'm the same way. I started off gaming with the Jack specific plug and plays, but like you were saying, I think that just not even looking at it from a nostalgic viewpoint, I will say that I feel like Smash for 3DS and Wii U had a more exciting hype train for many different reasons. As I said, I found the newcomers to be far more interesting. And not only
Yeah, I
that,
agree.
I just found it to be paced better considering that it was in addition to all the games that were announced coming to the Wii U. I feel like a problem for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, just in my eyes, because I know this isn't what the majority of people think, but there was really like nothing except for Smash, especially in 2018. And it got to the point where when there were game or information droughts or even game droughts, it just got annoying to hear more about Smash Bros. I think a great example of that is E3 2018, where it was essentially 25 minutes of things like you can see Donkey Kong now has very animated facial expressions and just ridiculous stuff like that.
Do you do you remember the ESRB leak
Oh my
and
gosh.
the Rayman leak, the famous Rayman leak?
I remember it like it was yesterday. That Rayman leak is actually the reason why I stopped believing leaks because anything before I would have believed without much skepticism, but Artsy Omni did
Yeah,
a really good job with that. And
and
you
he
know,
actually responded to one of your Flipnote videos. I
yeah,
remember.
I remember that and he responded many years later on my Mario Kart Live Home Circuit video saying that this is not the Mario Kart 9 or those who think that the demographic for this game is the one for Mario Kart 9. And I told him, I remember you were the guy who made the Rayman leak, but the ESRB leak was wild. That revealed
Yeah.
literally every character, and that was just insane.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I remember you told me that you already knew who was going to be in the game, and I'm not sure if I told you to just show me, or I'm not sure if I told you like don't show me.
I think eventually we just talked about it and we knew who was coming to the game because it released before for the 3DS and it released even
Right.
earlier in September 2014. And I also remember this isn't so much related to the Wii U, but Nintendo used to have this thing called Club Nintendo, which is essentially like My Nintendo, but way better because the rewards were far cooler. And I got a special Super Smash Bros. For 3DS demo, and I was talking to you about it, and you thought, okay, that's really cool. And how is it? I don't know. Would you like to play it? And I sent you the code, and you were probably very
Oh
happy that
yeah,
day.
that was great. Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you again for giving that to me. That was just like a memory unlocked. I remember like I was really excited that you had given me that, and I was like, holy crap! Like I get to play the new Smash Brothers early. And like I remember having a blast. I think I let my brother play it too. I think the only characters that were available was like Mario, Link, Donkey Kong,
Mega Man
probably
and Villager.
Kirby. Kirby.
Yeah, I remember
I
Mega
want.
Man and Villager, and then Mario, of
Yeah,
course. And
yeah,
specifically
yeah,
with that demo, there was no time limit. So I was playing the
yeah,
demo a lot on repeat, and
yeah. Me as well.
yeah, it was great. And just
And
overall, the Wii U era, just the hype in 2014 was just insane.
well, we got to talk about if we're going to talk about the Wii U, we got to talk about your amiibo hunting phases because that I think was wild. Like you guys don't know it, but this guy over here went on some serious amiibo hunts because back in the day, they were really hard to come by, like super hard.
Oh man, that was just something that, like I unlocked the memory for you. That is a memory that just you unlocked for me. I initially was just thinking to talk about the Wii U and its games and stuff and our experiences with them, but amiibos are a huge part of that. That was a defining aspect of the Wii U era. While the console
Yeah,
itself didn't do well, amiibos, oh my gosh, where'd I even begin? So they were revealed in 2014 as part of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. I still can't get over those names. It's been
they're
so long
terrible
and I
names.
can't get over it. Why not call it something like Super Smash Bros. Rumble on the 3DS? Or
I think those were like the rumored names for the longest. It was like Strife for Wii U and then Rumble for the 3DS, and then like eventually we figured out that was fake. But those would have been that those names would have been so much better.
at least we got a good name for the succeeding one. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's a really good name. But
Yeah,
with the
that's a good one.
amiibos, what was cool about them is that there are figures that are very high quality, and there are figures for every Super Smash Bros. Character, and there still are because they're still being made. There's a huge difference though. not only were they $12.99 back then, and not only was with the amiibos were they, you know, it was just mainly limited to stuff like Smash and other series. We got Mario ones later on, but they were incredibly hard to come by. Nowadays, one of the things I will give Nintendo credit for in the Switch era, I will gladly rake them over the coals for things like, the unfinished games, things such as Nintendo Switch Online, but one thing I will definitely give them credit for is actually making their products readily available. Even things like the Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch, which was supposed to be limited edition, you could still probably get that in a few stores. And with Amiibos, they're very easy to come across now. But back then, it was to the point where a lot of Amiibos were extremely hard to come by. But I wanted to get them, and it was really fun, but also really challenging collecting them. So I'll start off with the first amiibo hunt that I did. I waited in front of a Best Buy thinking that if I waited there for 15 minutes before the store opened, I would have a chance. I didn't. I didn't get Meta Knight, I didn't get Mega Man, I didn't get Sonic. So it was really just a matter of, waiting at that point and seeing what stores had in stock. And this is why I had Twitter, because you could use Nintendo to get notifications when when the amiibos were in stock. Because back then there were also a lot of store exclusives, and also speaking of notifications, that notification sound that I have going on there is also a blast from the past. But
Yeah,
either
that
way,
is.
I will say that with things such as obtaining amiibos, it was difficult to do. You'd have to act quickly. You'd always have to be on the lookout. But I feel like the defining amiibo hunting moment, there were two of them for me. One, I got really lucky with the Gold Mario amiibo. It was a Walmart exclusive, and it was back when Walmarts were 24/7. So there was no way I was going at midnight when I was like 15 years old. But fortunately, there was one Walmart in my area that still had them in the morning, which they didn't put out until that morning, and I was able to get them. And getting the Gold Mario was such an exciting experience for me. And of course, I still have all the amiibos that I got, but the
So do
biggest
I.
and the best amiibo hunt was easily May 29th, 2015, Wave 4 of Smash, Silver Mario, and that's also when Splatoon launched. And I remember getting really lucky that day. I actually waited in front of the stores, and I remember getting the exclusives. I got Jigglypuff. I was then off to Toys R Us to get Lucario, and the ones that were near impossible to get were Ness, Robin, and Lucina. But I did manage to get Lucina at Toys R Us, and guess what? I actually put in my number if they had Robin in stock, and I was able to get Robin that weekend. It was just insane that I was able to get most of the wave, with the exception of Ness. But fortunately, they restocked DDD and Ness, and they even restocked Rosalina a bit in July of that year. But to say the amiibo hunt was wild would be an understatement. But fortunately, later on, Nintendo realized, oh my gosh, our products are selling, we gotta make stock for them. And things became much, much easier to get. I would say that that was the last time you really had to hunt for amiibos, because ever since the Wave 4, it was really easy to come across most of them. With amiibos
It's
specifically, there are some that are going to be harder to find than others, but really it was just a matter of if you wanted it, just, get it shortly after it releases and you'll be fine.
it's strange how they're still actually making amiibos. I mean, I'm not complaining, but they barely have any functionality with any Nintendo games. I mean, when they do, they're just very like superficial and like they always were. The only games I could think of where amiibos were like really cool was Super Mario Maker, and I think I know, you know what I'm talking about.
And Yoshi's Woolly World, because that also had a very similar feature. And
I
I know
think,
this is a very obscure game, but there was actually one game that fully utilized amiibos. It was called Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I only mentioned Mario Maker because like that's one thing that the first game has over the second game. The array of costumes or power-ups that you could get. Like you could play a Mario level as Pac-Man, Sonic, Link. It's so cool. It's so cool.
And you knew the first level I would make is Pac-Land. That is the
Yeah,
first level I made for Super Mario Maker, and I think it was the
you know,
most popular level I posted.
It's funny. Speaking of Pac-Land, that just unlocked another memory for me. I remember you were very excited for the Pac-Land NES port on the Virtual Console.
I was, and looking back, it's not good, but it's
It's
also
not at
not bad.
all.
It was Pac-Land nevertheless.
It was, but now that we have Pac-Man Museum Plus, we have a home console way of playing the game. But
That is,
if you're
unless you're
like
like
me,
Soshi and get the arcade one up.
oh wow, he has the arcade one up. I'm envious.
He sure does.
Yeah, I usually play Pac-Land on my PC or like my phone, but it's a great game. But yeah, I also remember Pac-Man 2 was on the Wii U as well.
That I actually didn't know until this year. I think Soshi was telling me about that. And, if you want to do a Pac-Man 2 retrospective, when that could be the only redeeming aspect of your channel, definitely go for it.
Is it still available on Wii U, actually, speaking of that? Because I might, if it's cheap enough, I might get it just before the eShop closes on the Wii U.
I think it's a complicated process to, get the funds for the Wii U eShop because I don't know if you could use
Oh, did
cards
they cut it
anymore,
off?
but
Yeah.
there's always
Well,
other means.
oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I would say that that's another great aspect of the Wii U, the Virtual Console. At the time, compared to the Wii Virtual Console, it wasn't as great as it could have been, and the output was not as good as it could have been. But looking back, you got a really good library of Nintendo 64, NES, SNES, Game Boy Advance, even Wii games, and DS games.
Yeah, the Wii U had a great virtual console. I mean, we had literal DS games. I remember that Sonic Rush was on the Wii U. And I remember they had like GBA games like Sonic Advance and stuff like that. And then on the Switch, we have Kablooey.
We also got Jelly Boy, so it's automatically redeemed, but with the Wii U specifically, the Virtual Console was a great aspect, but another great aspect of it was, of course, the games. And I feel like this would be a good time. We talked about the hype for the games, but just overall going over some of the highlights. And I usually just like to start in chronological order from when they released. So I'll start off with New Super Mario Bros. U. It was good at the time, but looking back, it's just New Super Mario Bros. Wii again. So I'm not talking so much about that. New Super Luigi U is where it's at. That was a really cool take on 2D Mario, where it was a faster paced adventure. You had these condensed levels that took advantage of new mechanics and were also challenging. And overall, it was a really cool game. How did you feel about it?
Well, I thought they were both all right. You got to keep in mind too that Rayman Legends came out not too far after that. I think it was about a year or two after that, and that game, I mean, I had Rayman Origins for the PS3. That game I was really hyped for, and I still think Rayman Legends is one of the best 2D platformers I've ever played. Uh, it's so good. So, you know, but going back to New Super Mario Brothers, I thought it was all right. I liked the map design because it reminded me a lot of Mario World. New Super Luigi U, I thought was just okay. I didn't really like the idea of like the counting down timer and stuff like that because I kind of wanted more like I wanted to play around more with Luigi's skill set rather than rushing to finish the levels, but it was a good DLC. I will say that. It wasn't a bad $20 to spend on it.
And I do feel like back then Nintendo actually had a really good idea with DLC. They actually, I don't know what the hell happened with the Switch era, but back then when they did
Yeah,
DLC, it was paid, but it was always just bonus content. They did a really good job where the DLC was truly additional content that's extra if you want it. You didn't have to get it, but I always thought that it was good getting the DLC, especially with games like Mario Kart 8 and Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and
yeah.
Wii U. Oh my gosh, that title. I'll just call it Smash 4, but I'm just so used to it. But with Luigi U, going on to these two games, I'm not sure if you've played them. One of them I actually got when Mario Kart 8 released, because if you got Mario Kart 8 when it launched, they also offered a free game in addition to it, and that would be Pikmin 3. It was my first Pikmin
Yeah.
game, and I was interested to see what it was like. And the first way I actually played it was using the touch screen on the gamepad. But nowadays, I know that the Wii Remote and Nunchuck is the ideal way to play, but Pikmin 3 is a great game. I would say that all the Pikmin games are great, but I really thought the presentation of it was gorgeous because that was really the first game from Nintendo to fully showcase what HD consoles are capable of. And I couldn't really speak from past experience because it was my first Pikmin game, but looking back at it compared to Pikmin 1, which I played on the Wii New Play Control, it had all kinds of improvements. It was a more refined experience, and I am so glad we're getting Pikmin 4. Pikmin 3 Deluxe is
Yeah,
fine, but nothing beats a new game, and I'm excited for it to release. And this one is a lot more obscure. Game and Wario. This is a game that's
yeah.
going to stay on the Wii U probably. Have you played it?
Um, I feel like I played a demo of it. Was
Of
there a
course you
demo
have.
for
I played the
it?
demo as your catchphrase. I think there might have
Well,
been.
yeah.
I could be mistaken, but I
I
did
I
get it
think
for.
I played something of it. Either that or I watched some gameplay of it, but
Did you get
I
Club
didn't get it.
Nintendo the Platinum Award in 2014? Because that was
I
where you could get a game, and that's what I got.
I don't think. Well, I think I got Wind Waker HD because I remember I got a free game that year.
That was with Mario
And,
Kart 8.
yeah, that was a Mario Kart 8, and it was all right. But yeah.
What, Wind Waker HD or Game and Wario?
Oh, well, I was talking about Wind Waker HD. I'm not like a huge 3D Zelda fan. I'm more of a 2D Zelda fan. Uh, but
He's not that into Zelda, 3D Zelda. He's not that into Splatoon. What is this guy talking about? It's clear he doesn't like gaming. Get it right.
clearly,
Well, you do actually like gaming, and that's later down 2013 because we did get Super Mario 3D World, and the next year was just slammed with new games for the
Donkey
Wii U.
Kong.
Oh my gosh! But talking about Game and Wario a little bit, it's like Nintendo Land in a way where I actually did not play much of Nintendo Land. I know you said that it was a great time and everything, but Game and Wario is essentially a spin-off of WarioWare that has mini games that take advantage of the gamepad, and it still maintains a lot of the weirdness from that game. It's definitely its own thing, but I actually found it to be a pretty great game. I'm gonna do a Trash or Treasure episode on it at some point, and I
It,
feel like now would
it's
probably be a good time to do it.
it's like WarioWare snapped or touched.
Hey, it's not like WarioWare snapped, because the game's actually great. But WarioWare Touched, it's nothing like a WarioWare game in the sense where there are micro games other than the gamer thing, where you play as
Yeah,
9 volt and you have to hide from 5 volt. So it's mostly due to just it using the gamepad and everything, but I do feel like Nintendo Land was also a good showcase of that. But what do you think of Nintendo Land?
I thought it was fun. It's a lot of fun to play with multiple people, especially Mario Chase or like the Luigi's Mansion game. Um, I don't remember the other ones. I know there was like an F-Zero one and a balloon fight, and there was a Samus one, and they had this like weird Donkey Kong girder one.
Crash
Uh,
Course, Yoshi
Crash
Street Kart.
Course. I'm gonna knock on wood because the last time I asked for something like this, I got Switch Sports. But
Okay, when did you ask for it?
well, Wii Sports was pretty popular, and I did enjoy the bowling part of it.
I thought you said you didn't care about Wii Sports.
I don't, but like remember that we did predict that, yeah, they might make a Switch Sports one day.
Oh man. Be careful what you
Yeah,
wish
so
for. I actually made a
so
full
I'm
video
I'm
about it.
cautiously saying maybe like a Nintendo Land 2 or like Super Nintendo Land. I would like to see that with like more attractions based on like other Nintendo IP, like on the Switch, but knowing the Switch's track record, maybe we don't want that.
Well, we got the theme park now, so I think a good idea is just to say Nintendo Land 2, but good. Just like, I mean, when it came to Switch Sports, how could we ever predict that it would take place at Google headquarters, have connect avatar characters, and not even launch with the leg strap accessory being fully functional? Well, it actually, maybe we could have predicted it because it's not the first time a Wii Sports game launched in a very bizarre way, but this was in a case where it was actually bizarre in the sense of how it was released, but in the context of the game, it wasn't anything bad. just very weird. Wii Sports Club. Do you remember anything about it? Because it released in 2013, and I believe you could actually play a demo of it. And considering I've played the demo as your catchphrase, did you play it?
I did not play it.
Well, I have played it, and I did a video about it, but it's essentially just a remake of Wii Sports. I think a good way to put it is a friend of mine was saying, Wii Sports Club was dumb. It also looks ugly, it looks faded, but at least I understood the concept of what it was going for, because at the time a lot of people played Wii Sports at events or at parties and stuff, so they thought, maybe you could have it where you could rent it. That's an interesting idea, especially from Nintendo. So Wii Sports Club, stupid game, but I at least appreciated what it stood for. But Switch Sports, I can't say anything positive about. But yeah, with Wii Sports Club, it was a very weird idea. But the early half of the Wii U's life, well, I wouldn't even say it was a half, it's like a quarter, because it was from 2012 to 2013. I think things picked up with Super Mario 3D World, and I'd like to hear what you actually thought about the game when it released, because I know we talked about it all the time, but you would know your thoughts on it even better than I would.
When I finally beat the game and I had it in my hands, I thought it was good, but I still had flaws with it. I wasn't crazy about Mario's control. I was used to like the open control from like maybe not open, but like the controls from Galaxy or like Sunshine or 64. I wasn't nuts about the fact that you had to beat the game with like every single character. And I was also a little salty that the secret character was Rosalina instead of Wario again. I feel like I feel like when I was younger, I kept thinking like whenever there's going to be a secret character in a Mario game, I'm like, okay, this is Wario's time. And I think I'm just realizing that maybe I was just deprived of a Wario Land game at the time.
Yeah, I would say definitely that could have been the case. Also, he could have been a new Super Mario Brothers 2. How perfect would that have been? But
How perfect would it have been if we had a cat Wario costume and he looked like Garfield?
that is great. Someone should draw that as fan art. But with Super Mario 3D World, when it released, the problems I had with New Super Mario Bros. 2 and Super Mario 3D Land was just how play it safe and generic they were. I felt like Super Mario 3D Land was a great game. I couldn't say the same for New Super Mario Bros. 2, but it was just that they really didn't do anything new for Mario. That was not the case with Super Mario 3D World. While it did play similarly to 3D Land, and it was a little more play it safe in terms of the tone the game was going for, where it's not this open 3D Mario game. I loved 3D World for many reasons. I found all the power-ups to be great. There was a lot of creativity with the world themes and such. You had things like the circus, you had a Mario Kart level, you had Hands-on Hall, which is a Japanese pagoda. And overall, I've always been a huge fan of the game, and that was easily our most debated conversation back then, where we
Yeah,
always talk about Super Mario 3D Land, where you were on the team where you weren't too fond of it, but I was on the team where I loved the game, but I did want something like an open world 3D Mario game for the next console. Turns out we did
yeah.
get that with Super Mario Odyssey, so in retrospect, especially playing the Switch version, how do you feel about Super Mario 3D World now?
I still think it's okay. I definitely really love Bowser's Fury. That mode is excellent, and I think in some ways I prefer it more to Odyssey. That's just my opinion. I like the more focused approach that it has to its open world, and I also like that it's smaller and a little bit more condensed. Um, but yeah, 3D World, the main campaign, it's all right. It's a little too easy, I think, at times, and I think there could be a disjoint between like world themes versus like level themes. I think that could be a little bit more like, in line with what the world theme is, but there's a lot of cool little elements in the game, and I appreciate it a lot more, having had a 3D Mario game that I was expecting beforehand with Odyssey.
And looking back at it from a retrospective standpoint, I feel like with Super Mario 3D World, I've just pretty much kept the same opinion of it for nearly a decade, where I've always loved the game, and the Switch one's even better. It's just a lot more fun to control, with the faster movement, addition of the dive, quality of life improvements, and it looks significantly better too. I will say the Wii U
Yeah,
did have HD, but it was usually only 720p. But even though we weren't on the same page with Super Mario 3D World, I think that for a majority of the games we were. Donkey Kong Country
Yeah,
Tropical Freeze. I would say it's the
I
best 2D platformer ever made.
I think so too. I did remember saying that the game had a balance issue because you had Diddy Kong as a character, but you would barely use him because Dixie Kong was so OP. And I still kind of stand by that, but the game is so well designed and the music is excellent and it's just one of the best Donkey Kong games. And like you said, it's one of the best 2D platformers ever made.
I would say it's the best Donkey Kong game and the best 2D platformer ever made. Everything about it is just. This is really when the cracks for 2D Mario are starting to show. Because you had Rayman Legends, you had Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and you had other 2D platformers as well. Yoshi's Woolly World was a really good game. I know that you weren't especially crazy about it. I'm assuming because Nintendo released it 3 months later in North America when the rest of the world got it.
Yeah,
So the hype
I
for it
wasn't
might have
excited
slowed down
anymore.
for you. And also, that could relate to the later half of the Wii U's life. But I found that to be a great game. And although New Super Mario Bros. U was underwhelming, Super Mario Maker is hands down the best Wii U game, at least in my opinion, from the sense of how it takes advantage of the Wii U and just overall the replay value. It was perfect for the Wii U. You could make levels on the gamepad and test them out, play them on the gamepad. You could literally play the entire thing on the gamepad. But Super Mario Maker 2 is better because you can have more, there's more tools and such, and there's a lot more possibilities. But Super Mario Maker, if that game launched with the Wii U, I felt like it probably would have done better. That is a game that it needed to have early on, and I think another case of that is Splatoon. I know you're not too into Splatoon. Cody knows that. I know that. But I felt like Splatoon was a really good game as well. That was the start of Nintendo going the service route, but it wasn't a case like, the Mario Sports games or Switch Sports where it was severely lacking. But I feel like what it lacked was made up for by just the game itself being so fresh. It was a third person game, like a shooting game, but it was ink and paint and had squids. It was very cool, and it was the IP from Nintendo, the new one that they needed that really took off. And now it's one of the most popular Switch games, and it all started on the Wii U.
Yeah, and I would say overall that we have a lot of fond memories of the Wii U. That's how we became friends, but I don't think we're afraid to talk about the flaws of the console either, because, well, that helps us determine the future as well, now doesn't it?
Oh boy. So, before getting into the flaws, I would like to bring up two games that were definitely notable. Mario Kart 8, because that was the game that really started the friendship. What do you think about it? Because the original on Wii U didn't have the battle mode and it had a bad roster. So looking back in retrospect, there were certain things about the game
Well,
that I didn't like, and it really isn't as good as I thought it was. But it really wasn't a
I,
problem because the overall game itself was just unlike any other Mario Kart in terms of how much fun I had with it, and just the presentation was mind blowing.
yeah, so at this point, Mario Kart 8 is kind of a game I'm sick of at this point. I mean, we had it ported over to the Switch with some DLC stuff, which was cool, and like we got DLC a little bit after it released for some reason. But to me, I've been playing the same game for almost a decade now, and I would like to move on. It's a little like Skyrim, how the game just keeps getting ported and ported and ported in GTA 5. Like, I don't know, it keeps making money, so that's probably why we keep getting the same games. But yeah, I mean, whatever fond memories I used to have of Mario Kart 8, which I think were, racing against you and my other friends, they're pretty much squandered at this point.
I definitely feel how you're tired of Mario Kart 8 at this point, but I will say, like I said before, it's kind of hard to go back to the original on Wii U considering that Deluxe is a thing. And the same could also apply to Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is everything that Super Smash Bros. Wii U was without the trophies and then some. And overall with the Wii U, it had some great games, but with the Wii U, there definitely were some moments towards the end of the console's life that weren't so great because even though the Wii U did have good games, as the years went on, the quality was starting to decline, and this was especially apparent in the later years. So, funny story, I have a friend who recommended me Mario Party 10, who you may or may not know because it was you. What were you thinking?
Well, to be honest, um, the amiibo mode that it had was the closest that we had to regular Mario Party in years. So it was basically a call of desperation on my part. I mean, the game is so bad that it doesn't even have a menu, like the startup menu.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a title screen. And with Mario
That's
Party 10
terrible.
specifically, I know you were talking about the amiibo mode, and yeah, I understand where you were coming from, but how do you feel about the game now? Do you regret recommending it?
Yeah, I would say so. The game's pretty much garbage. I
I
mean, the amiibo mode, I mean, it's like Diet Super Mario Party, and if you know what that means, it means the boards are super small.
Microscopic, but
Yep.
Mario Party 10 I feel is indicative of a problem that the Wii U had. And a good way of putting it, Mario Party 9 was a fiasco. And with Mario Party 10, they did the same thing. I'm sorry, this doesn't solve anything. I
It
feel like
really
that was a
didn't.
huge problem with the Wii U because when it comes to Nintendo nowadays, a lot of the problems are things such as, you know, the online service, putting out products that are clearly not of high quality, things like the unfinished games and the online service and just overall just anti-consumer stuff. But with the Wii U, there was an issue that isn't so much present nowadays, but it was just the tone deaf games where Nintendo didn't listen to the feedback for prior games and made sequels to games that were either disliked or just had poor reception. I guess those are the same thing, but when you include reviews and such, and you get an idea of it, when they made Mario Party 10, I don't know why they would make a sequel to Mario Party 9 considering the feedback to that game. And if they listened to the feedback, which I know they did, if they didn't listen to it, why would they include something like the Mario Party amiibo mode?
I don't know, but then again, this was around the same time we got the well received and critically acclaimed Star Fox Zero.
Oh man, so Star Fox Zero I actually haven't really played, but that game it seemingly got bad reception because of the controls of the game, and I do feel like the gamepad integration was also a problem, but when I was referring to the games that were just, tone deaf on Nintendo's part, it was stuff like Mario Party 10. People wanted Animal Crossing on the Wii U, and then they released
Oh
Amiibo
boy.
Festival. I know it's not the Wii U, but Federation Force. And then after Sticker Star, we got Paper Mario Color Splash. Now, to be fair, in the interviews, they did talk about how they didn't really know what the feedback to Sticker Star was, which is why they started working on the game. But I feel like that was a big problem with the Wii U era that's
Yeah.
mostly gone now.
I mean, I still remember a certain YouTuber's reaction to Amiibo Festival. If I think you know which YouTuber I'm talking about, our favorite. Um,
I remember it too.
and that was one of the funniest reactions. Not funny in a way that's like, haha, you didn't get what you wanted, but funny in the way that Nintendo pranked everyone into thinking that we were getting a new Animal Crossing for the Wii U.
Yeah, they had the Isabelle amiibo, and then it shows an HD Animal Crossing, and then there are board spaces. No, when I remember the reaction vividly, it was him and two other guys watching it, and they see Isabelle, oh, and then they see the boards, no. But I think Paper Mario Color Splash was easily the worst example of that because I remember how disliked the trailer was, and just the backlash to that game was insane. But in addition to that,
Yeah.
the reason, or I think it was a good idea to bring up Star Fox Zero, how do you feel about the gamepad integration? Because I feel a lot of times it did hinder Wii U games, and I think the worst examples of that would be Star Fox Zero and Super Mario or Paper Mario Color Splash. Super Mario Maker is actually the best use of the gamepad, along with things like Nintendo Land and Game and Wario, but I would say when the use was bad, it's usually because it was just tacked on to justify the use of it, or justify the use
Mm.
of the gimmick.
Yeah, it was a really gimmicky controller, and I think most of the time the games that I ended up really liking on the Wii U basically had like minimal like attribution to the Wii U gamepad. Like Tropical Freeze, non-existent. 3D World, only like 2 levels use it. Um, the only game that actively I think utilized what the Wii U was meant to be was Mario Maker, and in that regard, we can't go back in time and change things, but if Mario Maker was the, you know, package title for the Wii U, and maybe we had a different name for it, I think maybe Nintendo's luck would have changed that decade.
I think they would have done better if Mario Maker was one of the games that released alongside it, as well as something like maybe Splatoon, but I feel like in that case Super Mario Maker is more important because it showcases why the gamepad is beneficial to games. And just overall, I feel like with the gamepad itself, oftentimes I found it to be a hindrance more than a benefit. And when I'm playing some Switch ports of Wii U games like Captain Toad, and I remember using the gamepad, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a phenomenal game, by the way, and you skipped out on it for the longest because me no likey Toad or some ridiculous reasoning like that. But, you know,
Toad!
I feel like
Yeah, I mean,
overall, most games are better with a controller, like a standard one.
yeah, no, I agree. I wasn't crazy about Captain Toad Treasure Tracker because I thought they were the most boring part of 3D World. I'm gonna like that was just my thought of it. But having played the game on the Switch, it's pretty fun.
Oh, it completely expands upon the concept of Captain Toad levels in 3D World, but overall, with the Wii U, the main thing I like about the console, or love for that matter, is just the personality of it. Everything from the home menu to just music in the background. It just had that Nintendo charm that's severely lacking on the Switch. And also the games, of course.
Yeah,
But everybody thinks that I love the Wii U and it's my favorite console that has no flaws, but looking at the games, a lot of them were very play it safe sequels to Wii games or 3DS games. And looking at
yeah.
some of my favorite games on the system, like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and Mario Kart 8, there were some games that were sequels to 3DS and Wii games that I love and definitely are some of the best games in the
Actually,
series, like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Super Mario 3D World. But it was things like New Super Mario Bros. U, which felt a bit too samey.
even I was gonna say that we had a sequel to a DS game on the Wii U, which was Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, which I actually gave to you. It had a really cool claymation style, but this is, I think, this is one of the downsides of the game. You constantly are looking down at the gamepad, and the gamepad is at 480p, while your screen is at 720p and up. So you wouldn't be able to kind of look at the beautiful graphics yourself because you're too busy drawing lines on the gamepad. Sorry, drawing circles.
Drawing circles isn't fun. That is a game I actually need to check out because I've yet to play it, but I mean, I think that's the only Kirby game on the Wii U. So I gotta
Yeah,
check it
isn't
out
that
at some
weird?
point. Yeah, it is weird that we did get, or we were missing a few games in certain series. Like, we didn't get an Animal Crossing for the Wii U, we didn't get a mainline Kirby game, and, definitely good that we have this series
Kir-
on the Switch.
yeah, Kirby was like more of a 3DS franchise
Oh,
around that time.
definitely. And I feel like Hal
Yeah,
probably put the resources in the 3DS because that was actually successful. But, a
yeah.
decade later, overall, how do you feel about the Wii U looking back?
Uh, I think it's bittersweet because on one hand, it wasn't a really great time for to be a Nintendo fan. I mean, you were constantly mocked online for liking Nintendo. There were barely any third-party games on the Wii U as well.
Oh, that
The
wouldn't
gamepad,
even phase me.
the gamepad was really gimmicky. The first-party games we got, for me at least, weren't up to they weren't up to par with what I wanted. Like 3D World wasn't really what I was expecting out of an HD next gen Mario game. It's still a good game, but it wasn't something that, it wasn't something that I was looking forward to. And like the rare gems that we did get didn't really push any sales for the Wii U either, like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, when, a game like that really should have had that. The marketing was really bad at the time. You know, I don't know who their demographic was, but hot buttered popcorn, did they not sell it to their target audience? But yeah, it was a really bad time for it to be a Nintendo fan. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff from the Wii U era that I feel like is missing during the Switch era. I think a lot of the charm and like quote unquote magic from Nintendo has kind of faltered in the past decade of the Switch era, just because I don't know. I don't know if it's because, leadership has changed over there, or if their priorities are different, but the company definitely feels more corporate and hollow, you know? And it doesn't really feel like they care. And,
I do
you
feel
know,
like with that,
um,
losing Iwata was a big part of that. That was by far the
yeah,
worst thing that has happened. And
yeah,
usually when I hear about a celebrity passing, I feel sad, but that one really hit close to home because, with the Wii U era and just that era in general, it was Iwata, Reggie, Miyamoto. They cared about the gamers because
yeah,
Iwata himself was a game developer, so he knew how much games mean to people. So there was an experience that it just kind of felt like Nintendo was an extended family. And even though
yeah.
the Wii U had some bad commercials, and you were talking about, oh, got made fun of for liking Nintendo. That was something I didn't even care about. Like I wore a Mario
No,
shirt
yeah.
in middle school. Sometimes you're like, oh, nice
It,
shirt, but I didn't even care.
for,
Nothing fazed me.
well, for me, it was a little tough because I had people just playing like their PS3s or PS4s talking about Call of Duty and whatever, and I just kind of, you know, as a kid in high school and middle school, you always want to fit in, so you really couldn't talk about the things you really wanted to, except for like those few friends that you have stuff in common with, um, and like a lot of the issues was that my friends would be like, if you had a PS3 and like you were playing this game, like we could play online, and I told them, well, you should get a Wii U, and they're like, man, I'm not getting a Wii U just for like two games.
And then they're talking about
Literally,
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe years later.
yeah, because they missed out on it. I
Where
mean,
were you when Nintendo
it,
needed you?
well, let's. It is partly Nintendo's fault for why those things happened. Um,
I would
you
say
know,
definitely
I think
marketing in the name was a huge part of it.
I also think the Wii U in general is like flawed as a concept. Um, but you know, we arguably got I don't even know if I should say better console out of it, but we got a better concept out of it.
We did get the Switch, yeah. That is one of the things that is always brought up, but looking back at the Wii U a decade later, I definitely have some very fond memories with the system, and I still play it to this day. It has excellent backwards compatibility with the Wii, and I know the shops are going to be down soon, but you could get virtual console games and such, and there were a lot of great games for the system. But compared to the predecessor, the Wii, I feel like the games often weren't as great as Wii games or even GameCube games. A lot of the
Hmm.
time, it was due to just being tone deaf in development, like with Paper Mario Color Splash or Mario Party 10, but I do kind of see where you're
Yeah,
coming from with things like, oh, they played it a bit too safe. Because I will agree with you there that they definitely did play it more safe where they wouldn't take as many risks as they would with some Switch games. I love Super Mario 3D World, but something like
and
Super
then
Mario Odyssey is easily what people
yeah,
expect from a next gen Mario game.
yeah, and I think one of the other issues was that Zelda took so long to come out that by the time Breath of the Wild came out, it was a dual release for both Wii U and Switch, and for the longest time you kept insisting to me it was a Wii U game.
It
But
is.
anyway, but With that, I mean, you could say the same thing with Twilight Princess being a GameCube game, but regardless, um, uh, it was interesting because at that point the Switch was already out. Who was going to get Breath of the Wild for the Wii U except for you? Uh, but yeah, it came out way too late. I'm not sure if like a new Zelda would have done anything for the Wii U, but I think a lot of major franchises were missing from the Wii U as well.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the issues with it. And like I said before, the gamepad could be either a blessing or a curse, but overall, the main problems I had with the Wii U were just pretty much the games playing it a bit too safe, not having enough
Yeah.
representation when it comes to series, and just, just stuff like that. Issues with the gamepad sometimes, but looking back, compared to some of the issues we have with the Switch now, I've been playing some Wii U Mario games, and there are the bad ones, but I've noticed that when they're bad, other than Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, it isn't due to the lack of trying. It's due to just poorly thought out mechanics and such. But overall, it definitely had the charm that is missing from the Switch. I won't say the Wii U is the best Nintendo console of all time, and I do think the Switch is a better console because, when the games are good, they're some of the best in the series. Where with the Wii U, they're really good, but I do feel like something like Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are better than 3D World
Oh
and
yeah.
Odyssey by a pretty large amount, at least for me, but I won't deny I got a soft spot for the Wii U, and I will always love the system to a degree. And by to a degree, I mean I love the Wii U.
Well, yeah. It's I have mixed feelings towards it. I always had, but you know, we became friends because of the Wii U, and uh I had a lot of good memories with the Wii U. Not a lot of great ones. I remember that long like wait, uh what's it called? With those rumors of the NX, like that was really painful. I didn't touch my Wii U at all. I was sick of Smash. I was sick of Mario Kart. I was waiting for like some big heavy hitters, and like I wasn't a big fan of Splatoon at the time, and I was really disappointed that E3 2016 was just Zelda. Just because like I'm not a huge 3D Zelda fan. I love 2D Zelda. Like Link Between Worlds, that's my jam. Give me another Zelda game like that. But yeah, I mean, it had its ups and downs, but you know, it's an interesting era of Nintendo that I think needed to happen.
And you know what? Even though there were the issues with the Wii U era, I mean there is with every console generation, I will say that overall the experience was pretty great, and looking back at it 10 years later, it's just fascinating to see how far we've come. Nintendo is now on top of the world once again, with the Switch being their highest success or highest selling console, and I'll be happy to cheer them on, but they got a lot to improve. But
Yeah, hopefully they don't fumble the bag for the next big console because it'll be another discussion. But I have a feeling the next console is right around the corner.
I feel so as well. I think with the Switch, things might be slowing down, and we should expect a new generation sometime soon. But in the meantime, happy birthday, Wii U. It's been quite the decade. Well, anyways, I think this about wraps it up. You got any other thoughts?
Um, Not particularly. I miss a lot of the charm and the magic from the Wii U era. And maybe that's because Nintendo's fan base was far more niche back then, but I feel like as Nintendo has gotten bigger over the past few years, I think they've lost track of who they were. And, you know, I know we make fun of Furukawa all the time on the channel, but, you know, it would be nice to see like a return to form with Nintendo, and maybe Furukawa can
Come
try
to
and
his
spice things
senses.
up. Yeah.
Really,
I mean,
the main thing they gotta do is just stop doing anti consumer stuff and stop releasing unfinished games, and I'd be
yeah,
happy with that.
to be fair, it is a gaming wide issue. It's not just Nintendo, but
Even
yeah,
so, they should be the leading examples, but
they absolutely should.
yeah, I think that about wraps things up. I'm Demeech,
And I'm Ty the Guy.
and keep calm and da on.